What's up, YouTube? It's Rochelle Tannen. It's August 21st, 2022. It's 11:45 p.m. on the East Coast. I'm coming in to do a video that I wanted to do a reaction response to. I gave it thought all weekend, and it's a response video, reaction video to Mr. Shawn James. What the silent and greatest generation did not teach the baby boomers. Now, Mr. James, he's out of the Bronx, New York. Very smart guy. He's not a rah-rah type New Yorker. He's one of them real book smart New Yorkers. Actually, he writes book. The brother is bad. Mr. Shawn James and David Carroll, I've been watching them almost a decade. Mr. James, I didn't know he was still posting until recently, so I asked his permission to respond to his video, and he gave it to me, so here we go. Now, his video was talking about baby boomers as a generation, and I'll touch some things as the baby boomers as a generation. My video is going to stick mainly to you black baby boomers, because I personally look at it as black baby boomers often get overshadowed about the prosperity and wealth that they had, and they just beam the light on what white people had and the prosperity, knowing that they're full of shit, and a lot of them were from prosperous families as well, because the silent and the greatest generation were very hardworking people. They believed in buying houses, passing houses. They believed in keeping the black dollar in their community. They believed in a sense of community much more than the baby boomers. Now, the baby boomers are from 1945 to 1964. My parents were baby boomers. My dad was born in 1958, and my mom was born in 1960. Now, I'm going to start by being positive. I absolutely love some of the contributions black baby boomers and baby boomers at large have given the world, especially with pop culture. This one on my chest, baby boomer. Madonna, Prince, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, Pat Benatar, Dolly Parton, all of them just were nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. My boys Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis didn't get in, I don't think, but Pat Benatar and Dolly did, so big ups to them. Wonderful contributions to popular culture. But there's some not so wonderful things about the black baby boomers, and things that have been getting on my nerves for about a decade or better. And this is for family, my own family, out. Black baby boomers have become very dishonest over the years. And what I mean is, black baby boomers sell this, and I hate this word, but I'm going to use it. They sell this narrative to younger blacks that they were so oppressed, and they come from nothing, and white people this and that, and all this bull crap, where a lot of black baby boomers were middle class. A lot of black baby boomers were lower middle class, had hardworking parents, hardworking grandparents, and did the best they could to provide for these ungrateful people. Now, it's like Mr. James said, after the Second World War, because of the Depression, people weren't having kids around that time. The soldiers got back in the 40s and got busy, and they created my parents' generation. Now, during the 50s, I gather in 60s, it was a celebration of family, country, and all that good stuff. The black baby boomers were given a whole lot, and much like their white counterparts, they were very unappreciative. The baby boomers became the me, self-proclaimed greatest, and as Mr. George Carlin said, their motto is, "Gimme it, it's mine." One of their other mottos can be found in the movie Wall Street, "Greed is good." Those mottos just didn't stick to white baby boomers. Black baby boomers are greedy too. Black baby boomers have become so far gone, they'd rather blame white cops for shootings in the neighborhood and tell these young black people that's the real problem, the root of the problem, knowing good and goddamn well they're lying. A lot of black baby boomers, they came up with both parents, but will sit here and condone this baby mama lifestyle for the last 40 years when it's really exploded, and tell these women that they're strong, and let these young men run around spreading seed and all this stuff and not check them. At the very least, you could check them and tell them it's wrong. They don't say anything about this ultra violence. They don't say anything about the communities being foreign ran and owned. And these are the elders. See, the silent generation, when I was a little girl and my grandparents were living, and my grandparents were old when I knew them, I ain't have no young grandparents. Their generation understood the importance of a dollar. There were more black-owned stores and black neighborhoods, not the hood, black neighborhoods. The hair care stores are black. A lot of the eateries are black. A lot of the stores are black. The hood I'm from, the neighborhood I'm from in Connecticut, we had a black-owned gas station on the block. Some Italians owned a store. There were a couple black eateries. And yes, our hair care store was black-owned. We had a few of them in New Haven where I'm from. That all changed as crack was ushered in, though. And the community has never been the same. And yeah, I'm bringing up crack for you black baby boomers because it's important. Baby boomers changed the dynamic of family, community, and just black culture so dramatically. I know that we can never be what we were, but we could at least turn it around. A lot of black baby boomers were about doing their own thing. They didn't want to be like their parents. A lot of my dad's generation, my father's parents' generation, a lot of those men worked the factories. They worked as janitors. Some of the most respectful men in the world. My grandfather, my father's father, was a janitor for many years. But my granddad, I had so much respect for him. My mother's father, too. I had so much respect for him because even though he was pushing a mop, he was still an honorable man. And I always say to young people, and I work this way when I'm in offices, I'm always good to the janitor, the custodian. You always be good to custodian because the custodian can get you in any door. And the custodian is the keeper of the house. Very important position, believe it or not. You don't hear about a lot of janitors getting laid off, do you? But I digress. They were very honorable people, the silent generation. Can't say perfect, I wasn't there. But they were better than the baby boomers. A lot of the baby boomers didn't want to work the factory floors and things. They want to become drug dealers, and a lot of them did. Rick Ross is a baby boomer. Not the rapper, not Rose. The original Rick Ross, he's a baby boomer. Greedy as fuck. Still greedy in his old age. And I despise Rick Ross. I despise him and everything he represents. Because until this very day, if you listen to his story and the way he tells it, it's like he's the victim and he was just a victim of the Contras war and all that. He was complacent in that era and destroying these black communities, and he still doesn't take responsibility for it. But he still wants some money, though. He still wants some money. He don't care about the generation. Crack was so bad, it impacted the generations that weren't even born yet. People that weren't even breathing yet. So a lot of baby boomer men decided to become drug dealers. A lot of the baby boomer women decided to become girlfriends of big time drug dealers. A lot of baby boomer women, all of this welfare shit started with y'all in the late 60s and 70s. That was y'all. A lot of baby boomers don't want to tell young black people they came up with both their parents, or at the very least, let's say you had a mother that was widowed, she would at least get remarried and have a head at her house in her household. It was not fashionable to have out of wedlock kids amongst the silent and greatest generation. That's why a lot of baby boomers, when they got pregnant in the 60s, 70s, they got sent down south. That wasn't nothing it wasn't a badge of honor. That was a shame to the family. Not you boomer women. Y'all chose them welfare checks. And now that's 2 or 3 generations far gone, and you baby boomers have sold these young black women and men that baby mama, baby daddy is fucking normal, knowing you're lying through your teeth. And let's get into respect, because I get sick of hearing certain shit from black baby boomers, because they're like a badly scripted movie. They just say the same shit over and over. I have heard in this city I'm in many times, when we was kids, we had respect. If you did something, everybody on the block could hit you. Okay? When we were young, we did this and that. We walked on water. Yeah, maybe. I believe you. I've said to baby boomers, I believe you were raised with respect. I believe you were raised to be hardworking. But I also know you started getting high in the 80s. So any of that respect you had, y'all put right in that fucking pipe. Like Pookie said in New Jack, crack a barrel, crack a ass, it didn't matter as long as it was in the fucking pipe, baby. And y'all threw away a lot of your children's wealth and inheritance to get high. And not only were you disrespectful to your children of the time, because a lot of y'all didn't raise them, you were disrespectful to your parents. You know, the ones that y'all was raised with so much respect. Black baby boomers don't ever talk about, like I witnessed when I was a little girl, respect your parents, huh? A lot of y'all, when y'all were wilding out in the 80s, early 90s, you were ripping your parents off, stealing your mother's jewelry, china, furs, furniture, electronics, ripping her off, ripping your fathers off, ripping the old people in the neighborhood off. A lot of you boomers, a lot of people my age, younger than me, weren't even raised by our parents. Our grandparents raised us. Some of the people born around my time, younger than me, through the 80s, weren't even raised by their parents. They were in foster care. Now, fast forward almost 40 years later to hear black baby boomers say it, they walked on water. Black baby boomers, if you talk about the crack era, the first thing that comes out of a lot of their mouths, well, a couple things. It wasn't that bad, and my mother was an alcoholic. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. And all these fucking catchphrases to camouflage, to smoke screen the fact that they full of shit. They full of shit. Since the boomers decided to become super greedy and super addicted, they changed the dynamic of the black community. It's a really hard pill to swallow, being 42 and seeing what was built when I was a little girl and having such a nice black neighborhood to watching the birth of the hood. It's very disheartening because I remember what my grandparents built, like a lot of silenters and greatest generation people built. And I also remember the neighborhoods their kids destroyed. And it was never enough. You know, when my dad, before he passed, and I very rarely speak ill of my parents, but it is what it is, and I like to be transparent. My father was such a fucking brat. My father's parents had 2 houses, got new cars every other year, and my grandparents always ate well. That's where I get it from. I don't give a fuck about a bundle of hair, but I give a fuck if I have a ribeye steak or not. I give a fuck if that's sitting in my freezer. I care about that. Because my grandparents ate well. You are what you eat. And my grandmothers didn't wear weaves and all that wild shit. So that a lot of that shit's asinine to me. But my father used to complain up and almost to his dying day what his parents didn't do for him. They didn't do enough for him. My dad had the opportunity to go to college. Now granted, when my dad was a young man, work was different. Money was different. It was worth more. There were different opportunities and things. So he didn't go to college for whatever reason. But his brother, my uncle, he went to college. My sisters and I, we're not the first generation of shit in my family. My uncle went to Wesleyan University. My uncle was a lawyer. He was disbarred back in the 90s because of his drug habit. And my uncle lived with my grandmother as long as I can remember. Never enough. Gimme more. As the late, great George Carlin said, the baby boomer motto is, gimme it, it's mine. That just don't stop with white baby boomers. That's black baby boomers, Asian baby boomers, Hispanic baby boomers, generationally. Gimme it, it's mine. Same thing with the Wall Street movie of the 80s with Gordon Gekko. Greed is good. No other generation has said that shit before the 80s. Greed is good. And they really believe that shit up until today. I've watched this current presidential administration talk about student loans. Because a lot of people are in student loan debt. All kind of people. From the middle class to the lower income. I've I watch videos and read comments on YouTube of baby boomers, and I know it's you guys, and early Gen Xers, but I'll stick to the boomers mostly, talking about how if you took out loans, you need to pay them and all this other stuff, and that's fine. However, baby boomers, didn't you guys get to go to state colleges and shit for free? And if you did have to get student loans, those were for advanced degrees. A lot of the dentists, lawyers, engineers, doctors that you see that are baby boomers and aging, them guys got to discharge all that debt through bankruptcy in the early 90s and late 80s. Then they made it didn't make it illegal, but you can no longer discharge student loan debt in the 90s. How messed up is that? So they made it so their kids can't do the same thing they do. Now, they'll talk shit about student loans and how people like myself, we're just not working hard enough and we need to pay this debt. Meanwhile, asking for a $2,400 increase on Social Security. And me being the Reagan kid I am, and a kid of baby boomers, I don't want to pay for you. It's about greed. It's about me. If you had 70 years and ain't got shit, whose fault is that? Or have your kids help you. Because black baby boomers are good for saying, and gets on my nerves, because listen, black people in this country are still so like we're these strong families and shit. That shit is dead or dying. Black families are so messed up, and a lot of it started with the baby boomers. Have your kids take care of you, because black baby boomers, that's the only people y'all care about anyway. Some of you. Oh, my kids went to college. My kids did this. My kids da-da-da. To have them fucking pay for you. Just like you don't want to pay for student loans, I don't want to pay for you. You, baby boomers, as far as prosperity, in the measurement of prosperity in this country in the last 122 years, baby boomers have been the most prosperous. Hands down. Because their parents' generations had to go through the Great Depression. Millennials and Gen Z and late Xers had to go through the boom and bust economy. Every few years we're busting. We're about to bust now. We have to face that. You guys have 30, 40, 50 years of nothing but prosperity. What the fuck are you doing at 70 years old not having nothing? When you guys could buy houses for 30, 40 grand. Today, you can't even get through the door, depending on city, without a $250,000, $500,000 to buy a house, a 2-bedroom house. Student loans, a lot of these millennials, late Xers, Gen Zers have student loans. How are we supposed to prosper? Have your kids pay for your medical expenses and things. Because that's the only people black baby boomers care about are their kids. It used to be a time where it was more communal and the community cared about all kids in the community. Not baby boomers, not black baby boomers, even in some in my own family. My mother's family lives a few hours away up north. They don't check on my sisters and I. They could give a fuck. Only time we see these people, we go visit them, and they only like us around if we're doing bad, so they can tell us how great their kids are. But a lot of black baby boomers are like that. They only give a fuck about their kids. But in their heart, for a lot of these black baby boomers, they know their kids are finished when they're done. And instead of being honest and truthful with a lot of these people, so their kids have a better chance after their heads go cold, they keep the lie going. Because if they told their kids how much of a fuck up they were, they would have to look in the mirror and say, damn, I messed up. And black baby boomers do not want to own any ownership, take any ownership of how they messed up the black community. Them. Not white people, not white cops, not the government, you. The very fact that in the black community we have discussions about if a father's important lets me know that the elders, the people who are becoming elders now, are fucked up. Because a lot of black baby boomers had their fathers. And if they didn't have their fathers, a lot of women in the silent generation, my grandmother, my father's mother was married twice. She had 2 husbands, 2 rings. Because it was not fashionable for a woman to have a bunch of illegitimate kids. And if she became a widow, she got remarried. But all this having illegitimate kids, and you're so strong, and you can do it by yourself, and for the men, you don't have to head your families, you don't have to come home to your families, that started with the boomers. Now, fortunately, my parents were boomers, but I did have pretty good parents. My dad, I knew him for 40 years. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I knew him for 40 years. There was never a day I couldn't call my father. But my father was still a boomer. He was still a spoiled brat. And it was always everyone else's fault. And it was never enough. And he was just like his peers. My dad would talk about the wrongs I did or any of my sisters, but if we brought up his drug addiction, or if we brought up something he did wrong, it'd be a big song and a dance. Because boomers don't accept their role in anything. You got a lot of baby boomers out here. I watch some of these old men in my neighborhood. I live in North Philly, in one of the hoods. One of the main streets near me, there's this little patch where there's no buildings because this whole area is almost decimated. And these old men sit outside Monday through Friday, through the week, where these men should be working, and watch the young men sell dope. Hell, some of them buy dope from them. At 9 o'clock in the morning, Monday morning, tomorrow morning, a lot of old black baby boomers will be in front of the delis that sell beer here in Philly. The deli sells beers. Waiting for these Asian-owned and Dominican-owned stores to open to give them even more money. That's not young black men. Same thing with these old black baby boomer women. And there's nothing I hate more than old black baby boomer women who are recovered. My mother never smoked crack by the grace of God. I only had her 16 years in my life, but she never smoked crack. And like she used to call them bitches back in the 80s when they were prostituting and fucking up the neighborhood, you're a bunch of geek monsters. Now the women her age, my mom would have been 62. Now they're recovered. They talk like their shit don't stink. I'm glad you're recovered, sweetie, or whatever recovered is. But some of us never smoked crack. Some of us never did powder. Some of us, our mothers never did crack and whatnot. You're not better just because you've decided to come out of your 30 or 40 year fucking coke haze. Now you think you can do some preaching. Now that all the damage is done, now y'all want to do some preaching. And even in your preaching, you're not even being honest. And then wonder why the community can't heal. The community's not going to heal starting with Gen Z. That's not going to happen. It has to start with the old. And as millennials and Gen X get older, we have generational things we need to address. But you baby boomers, more than Gen X or millennials, you guys are going into your golden years. You guys have an obligation. And for all the God talk I hear with black people, you guys have a biblical obligation under the good Lord to lead the young. Not try to stay forever young. A lot of these old boomer women know good and goddamn well they weren't wearing no fucking leggings when they were young women. They know there's 4 seasons to clothes. They see how these young women look and they don't try to correct them. They'll tell them they look nice, knowing that they fucking lying. And a lot of that shit with a lot of black baby boomers, this is indicative to their generation. They want to be forever young. They don't want to be old. They want to believe that they still in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and you're not. Hell, as a 42-year-old woman, if I meet a 20-something-year-old woman that I find worth it, or young man, and this has happened to me, want advice or guidance about certain shit in life, because a lot of the ones in their 20s, their parents are my age, I'm more than happy to give it. I may not have a lot of money and whatnot, but what I do have is a lot of character and a lot of goodness, and I want to see these younger people do better than the older people did. Some of the young, because they're like any other generation. You're going to have your weenies and you're going to have your winners. But I want to see some of these young people repel some of the shit of old. Because we have to, or we'll be fucking extinct. And right now, the greedy baby boomers, the selfish baby boomers, don't seem to want to address these issues. It's kind of like the cop shooting with these drug dealers and shit that happened in the last decade. These old black people co-signing BLM, co-signing all this nonsense, these riots and shit. They should have been the first ones telling these young black people to sit down and shut the fuck up. Because again, the police are the end result, not the beginning. If a lot of these black kids had better upbringings, 2-parent households like a lot of you boomers had, old grandparents, in a functioning community, they wouldn't be out here selling dope. And a different mindset of community. A lot of this shit starts with the baby boomers. And baby boomers, listen here, y'all better do something. Because a lot of you black baby boomers, you're running out of time. I work in Medicare. I know for a fact a lot of y'all's parents are outliving you. And the way you're leaving this world, it's going to be a lot worse. So y'all better do something. There's a reason why a lot of these younger generations don't respect you, don't look up to you, and treat you like shit out in the street. Unlike when y'all were young men and whatnot, y'all looked up to the older quote-unquote gangsters or whoever in the neighborhood. A lot of these young men don't even look up to y'all. And I don't blame them. Why am I going to look up to someone who's wearing the same fucking jeans I am? I'm 25, you 65 wearing jeans that I'm wearing. Same thing with the young women. I am so sick and tired of seeing these men that were my father's age talking to women who are 20 and 30. I understand they're adult women, but especially in them 20s, they're young enough to be your granddaughters. There should be a line of respect there. Some of these men will fuck with these young chicks and have daughters older than them. And think it's okay. The baby boomers have become devilish and dishonest. Black baby boomers particularly. And that's why we're in the mess we are in now. I didn't mean for this video to run this long, guys. But I'm negative. Today I am hating on the baby boomers. Yes, I am. And Shawn James, thank you for allowing me to do this. You guys have a good night. I'm going to bed for work in the morning. I'm out.